I agree. Spirited Away is far better. I think Spirited Away is the greatest animated film of all time. It's him doing, you know, Lewis Carroll and The Wizard of Oz. I mean, Miyazaki literally goes through the Looking Glass. It goes back to classic Disney. I mean, the classic Disney stuff, but it's more mature and thematically rich than those films. It's just him going back to that pure escapism that existed in films like Sleeping Beauty and stuff like that. Chihiro as a character. There's so many wonderful things, set pieces, moments. You know, the third act isn't as good as the first two acts, certainly. The third act does kind of like whimper out, but it doesn't matter. The journey of Spirited Away, going to that world, to that bathhouse, and seeing it through in Chihiro's eyes and watching her organically grow through that world, and you kind of grow with her. It's kind of life reaffirming. When I first saw it, when I was 13, I think I rented it, or I might have saw it in the theater, but I rented it. It was just kind of life changing. It's one of those movies the first time you see it, but every time you see it, it's just as good as the first time you saw it. That's how masterpieces are. Every time you see them, you find something new in them. You know, I watched that movie probably every year. I used to watch it every few months, but you know, I've watched Spirited Away, you know, 30 times easily. And Princess Mononoke's a masterpiece too, and I love Kiki's Delivery Service and Nausicaa and all that, of course. But Spirited Away, it has all the simplicity and elegance of something like Kiki or Totoro, but it has the grandeur of something like Nausicaa and Princess Mononoke. So in many ways, it's the ultimate Miyazaki film because it takes all of his scale and wonderful things. Like, you know, Castle in the Sky feels like a lost Spielberg film or something like that. But it has all the grandeur and excitement of those films, but it also has the quiet poetry of his more family-friendly work, and he balances it perfectly. And it's just one of the most visually engaging, voluptuous, wonderful, hypnotic films. The tone of that film's absolutely perfect. The pacing is it's how you should pace a movie. It's a movie filled with movie magic moments. The scene with the lake spirit getting the bath, the scene with Haku flying into the thing and her having to go upstairs, and the giant baby and all that stuff. I even think about when she's getting thrown at the doors and the doors are shutting behind her. Yubaba's shutting the door. That stuff's also amazing. The detail, it's got the meticulous detail of something like Akira, but with the heart and emotion of only the most classic kind of films. There's not an ounce of cynicism in Spirited Away. You yourself get spirited away. That's kind of the magic of it, is that you feel like you went to this world. And that's really the magic of movies when they're at their best in that sense, is when you feel like you believe in this world, like you did with Star Wars or The Wizard of Oz, that you believe in Oz and the Yellow Brick Road and this journey Dorothy's going on, even though you could tell it's people in costumes. There's something about movies like that sometimes where you buy into it. You believe Tatooine's a real place. It's not just some desert. You believe that the Death Star's a real thing. You believe that this world that Miyazaki's created isn't just something that's in this old Japanese man's imagination. It has a fluidity to it and a truth to it, that you feel like you can touch it and grab onto it. And the film itself grabs onto you. It grabs onto your heart, your soul. And once you see it, it's kind of hard to have it be separated from you. There's a reason that it's the highest rated film on IMDb, animated film on IMDb. There's the reason that critics loved it so much and it made so much money. There's a reason that anime fags and even casuals still talk about it the way they do. Because few films in the history of cinema, animated or not animated, have the just pure escapism and wonder of that film. There's few films ever made. I've seen a lot of movies that capture what that film captures in just 10-15 minute stretches of it, that not only makes you love movies and storytelling, because it's a film filled with so much storytelling. He's telling a bunch of mini stories inside of a story. It makes you not just love art, which is what's so wonderful about it, because it makes you love other people. It makes you love living. It makes you like that you're growing up. It's not a bad thing to grow up, and you don't have to be so nostalgic for childhood anymore. And it, at its best, I guess, is about the resilience of human beings, and why the magic of the afterlife or something greater than yourself isn't always isn't always as great as you might think it would be if it existed or not. Sometimes life is enough. The real world's enough. Yeah, it's really it's great. I mean, I could talk about it for hours. I mean, I love it so much. I mean, to me, it was the great film of the 2000s, up there with some South Korean films and or like City of God. But for me, yeah, Spirited Away was to me, I would compare it to what people probably felt in 1977 when they saw Star Wars or when people saw The Wizard. I mean, that's the only thing I can compare it to. For me, it was like magic. I mean, it took me away and blew me. I mean, it was blew me away and like changed my life in some way. I mean, it's really it stayed with me. And when you grow, the movie grows with you. You see new things in it as you get older. And it's Miyazaki taking everything in his career that he had built up over decades and putting it all into this thing because he thought it was going to be his last movie, which he did with Mononoke too, and his ultimate message about violence and the environment. But then Spirited Away, he puts it all into going back to the basics, because when he wanted to make the film, he met his friend's child, and she seemed kind of separated and detached from her parents, that she was kind of in her own world, and kids are sort of in their own world. So Miyazaki explores that. What if you were in your old world? Let's go down to that. And having to kind of lose yourself from your parents. When you're young, when you're a young teen and you're mid-teens, you kind of drift away from your parents and you want to be, but then when you get a little bit older, you want to come back to them. You like your parents again, if you have a good relationship with them, obviously. And she kind of drifts away and goes off in her own thing, but then she ends up kind of coming back to her parents and wanting to be with them again and not being so angry. And also, it's about at the beginning, she doesn't want to move. She's holding on to the past. They're in the car, and she doesn't want to live in the new house. She misses her friend. She has the flowers. But then at the end of the movie, she accepts moving to the new place because she wants to go somewhere else because she's ready for the new and exciting. I mean, there's so many wonderful little details and nuances to that film that so many other films don't have. Even great films don't have as many details and nuances as that film. And I've seen, like I said, I've seen a lot of movies, but just little bits of Spirited Away, or there's a dozen movies and stories and themes within scenes in that film.